is this? Go on, let's have some of that high stuff. Can we make this a slap groove?
Yeah?
Will that work?
Yeah?
So here's some slap tone from it. Some tone there.
Go on.
Oh yeah.
Lovely.
Oh, nice. So I mean that's kind of straight out the box tone, isn't it? That's everything in the middle, basically.
Yeah, so everything is everything's flat. Everything's flat. I mean, the electronics on this bass are
there's something
involved,
else, aren't
aren't
they?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here, which we're going to get onto in a second.
So yeah, looking at it, you're probably thinking, what, 4 controls, 2 pickups? That's normal, but no, these are stacked. So we've got 8 controls for 2 pickups. One of them's a master volume, which you'd expect. One of them's a blend between the 2 pickups, but then we've got these. Oh, what are they even called? Filter EQs. So we are sweeping and we're boosting and we're doing all kinds of things to the pickups independently, plus another set for the master section.
But before we get stuck into all that,
Yeah.
I need to introduce myself. Introduce my glorious guest here, Matt Glasspool. We're in your home studio today.
Yes,
Thank you for inviting me in. And the other special guest, of course, is what I'm playing here, which is the Jones bass. And as far as I can tell, this is a world exclusive.
Yeah.
This is the first time this bass has ever been really kind of played publicly.
This is the most special guest my studio has ever seen in pound value, if nothing else.
So Jones bass is made. We're in the south of England here, and Jones bass is made very nearby. And in fact, some of the woods on this bass are New Forest woods.
Yeah, which is glorious, isn't it?
So this bass is local as well, which is just lovely.
Yeah. So, and specifically, it's the tone block. Am I right in saying that? So the bit in the middle that's surrounding the pickups, that is the tone block, and that is a New Forest bit of timber.
It is. Yeah.
Can you remember what any of the others were? Because there's several.
There is.
I can see some ash in there.
Now, because Mark of Jones Bass has given us this bass, I am really worried about getting anything wrong, because I know he's gonna. Because there's a lot going on in this bass. It's a wonderful. It's a lovely bass. It's an absolute joy to play. And there's like I said, there's a lot going on, and I'm just worried about getting anything wrong. So should we dial up our list, and then it might actually better us.
Oh, here we go. So it's an ash body with flamed walnut facings. Yeah, okay.
That's this bit here.
Absolutely. So I was right. The bit of ash that I can see from this angle, and it's the bit in the middle there.
Okay, so the ash is here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Walnuts on the front.
And then we've got.
Did you say flamed walnut?
I did. Flamed walnut.
Nice. Yeah, lovely.
Nothing else will do. The neck is maple black poplar stringers. So the stringers, I assume, are. Now, can we really see? We'll have to do a close up of the back of this neck.
Yeah.
I think.
Hopefully on screen now you're seeing.
Yeah,
it's lovely, glorious detail.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, just the way it's built, sound aside, the fact that it's a bass is almost irrelevant. it's a thing of wonder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just before we've even put any pickups and strings on it.
It's stunning. Fretboard is rosewood, I believe.
Oh, let me check the list. Yeah. So, this doesn't even say. It's not.
I'm pretty sure it's rosewood. I'm pretty sure the next rosewood.
Yeah, I agree with that with my untrained eye. a very clean piece of rosewood. It's almost. I'd imagine in the video it looks almost black.
Yeah.
So on that, I think that's an ebony fingerboard on that, and it almost looks like that. But close up, I can see that. There's a bit of red in there. Mm-hmm. Nice.
That's lovely. And this is serial number 0001. Hold on, how many zeros? 0001. So this is the.
That's optimistic. He's going to do at least 1,000 of these.
Well, I hope so. It's a lovely bass. All right, so we spoke a little bit about the electronics because as lovely as the kind of craftsmanship and the woodwork is on this, and as meticulous as the build quality is, we can't go too far into talking about this bass without talking about what's going on with the knobs and the controls and everything.
I think so. That's really what Mark was so passionate about, wasn't it? It was the tonal capabilities of the bass are really off the chart. So we've got. Let me use the. So it's an East ACG or East/ACG EQ01 preamp.
So that's John East and Alan of ACG have kind of teamed together to produce this preamp. And the reason, well, one of the many reasons that I've asked Matt to talk with me to talk about this is because you are a sound man as well as being an amazing bass player.
Thanks.
You've got great ears.
Yeah, and you need it sometimes, don't you? I was saying before we started that I have this bass that has a controller that I'm not entirely sure what it is. I mean, by ears alone, because I have no specs for this. It's this kind of early 90s tune bass, and I've got no kind of background. If I found any background, it was in Japanese. I couldn't understand it. So it has a control that I can't quite get my ear around, and these are exactly the kind of controls that you need to have explained to you, I think, because they're doing kind of more than one thing at once in terms of tones, and how you actually apply that is it's an art form in itself, I think.
Okay.
But so let's have a look. So first of all, so we have a master volume. We have a blend between the two pickups. Okay. Nothing unusual in
so that's here. That's the master volume?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll demonstrate.
That's what it sounds like with no volume. Okay.
And then this one is the blend between the two pickups, right? And these are multi-coil pickups.
Yeah.
So, the pickups are pretty special as well, aren't they?
They are indeed, yeah. So that's going above and beyond your kind of single coil humbucker arrangement. This is kind of, as far as I understand it, a coil for each string, basically. So it's voiced per string rather than as a block.
Yeah. Which gives you more control over the volume levels and the tone of each string.
I suppose so, yeah. In the windings themselves, I don't actually know how they vary across the strings, but that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, amazing.
But yeah.
So okay,
let's have a quick listen to the bridge pickup.
All right. Okay, so I'm rolling this back. Volume's up.
Really clean, really funky. So I was saying, wasn't it, before we started, I kind of have this thing in my head, and I don't know, this might be controversial.
Right.
So if you're a guitarist, you're either a Strat or a Les Paul kind of person, aren't you? It's kind of two camps.
Okay.
I think on bass, it's kind of, and they're not hugely diverse, but I think on one side it's kind of P bass, the other side is kind of Stingray.
Right.
Does that entirely in my head? Or
no.
And really the principal difference is pickup position. You're nearer the neck on a P bass. The Stingray and what the jazz bass adds is that bridge. And when you go back towards the bridge, you get the funk, you get the tone, you get that kind of clarity. Mm-hmm. Not that the P bass is muddy, that's kind of the whole point. It's precision, it's lovely, but it's a round sound. And when you go back, you get the kind of, something a lot sharper. Mm-hmm. I can hear the
the Jacko tone. He was always bridge pickup, wasn't he?
That kind of, but I mean, he was very mellow, though. Obviously, being fretless is kind of.
But there was that kind of honky mid-range kind of thing about him.
Yeah, that's kind of where that funky stuff comes from. I mean, the way he played was very round, very kind of P bass-esque. But the tone was definitely kind of further back. And Flea, I'd say, was kind of probably a quintessential kind of Stingray kind of bass player. Everyone knows that sound, don't they? So we're in that territory, aren't we? We're in Stingray territory at the moment at the bridge.
Okay, cool.
So
all right, so.
Lovely and clean.
Great.
Loads of clarity to it. But the problem you get when you go back that far is you lose a bit of your bass.
Right.
You lose the low end. This is what I love about this bass, is that when I'm at the front, let's get this flat. So this is with my EQ flat. This is my kind of P bass-esque sort of sound. And when you roll back, you get that honk, but suddenly all the bass has gone out of it. It's quite thin. Now, the great thing about this is I can just dial in some bass on the EQ and it kind of puts it all back. And you get suddenly you're back in a kind of, bass territory again and it's sounding good. So I'd say already this is sounding better off the bat, but what can we do with these controls to kind of make sure we have that bass?
Now, I'm one of these bass players that when I look at controls like this, we've got 4 sets of stacked knobs. I get a little bit lost within the tonal variations.
So
lead me through this, Matt. Because
the back ones is we've got a high pass filter and a overall treble control. So this is kind of really governing the high end of the whole thing. So this is really what you're worried about if you're the kind of slap player. You want to be cutting through everything, horns, everything. You're going to be worried about your top end a lot more. But this is some serious treble. This is like this is very high up. So you kind of don't need to worry about that right now. I think what we want to do is move forward. So the next set along, as we've already said, is the master volume and the blend. And then after that, we've got our dedicated tone controls for this pickup.
Okay, so this belongs to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what we should be able to do is sweep through the frequency range with the back knob, the bigger knob of the two, and the amount that it peaks, that the size of that peak is governed by the top one.
Okay.
So we can really accentuate that sweep by turning up the outer knob of the two. Okay. So if you at the moment you're in the middle,
so everything's like 0.
Let's kind of
middle.
dial the peak forward a bit.
Okay.
So up a little bit more just to really accentuate this. Not too far because we've discovered that it actually goes for days. But just a little bit. And then maybe if you can, tool order, can you sweep and play at the same time?
Oh, hold on.
There we go. Right, it's almost a wah pedal.
Yeah, and you're right. The frequency range, if I start right at the back,
that's real low. If you're watching this on a phone or a tablet, you might not be able to hear that. And
I've only brought this up a little bit there.
So that's the center one you've only brought. So that the boost. So that boost can actually be bigger than this.
Shall I?
Well, let's go a bit further.
I feel like this is dangerous territory.
The more you boost it, the more it's going to sound like a wah pedal. The more it's going to start to sound like special effects. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, there was a little pop there. That's really extreme. Oh, that's actually getting to the point where it's feeding back, I think, through our speaker. So we wind that back a touch.
Okay, hold on. This is what I mean about dangerous territory.
Yeah.
Because this thing is insane.
This is serious prep, isn't it? You're not just going to rock up at a gig with this and go, I was just trying anything, This is my kind of working bass, and this is as complicated as I want to be on stage because you kind of reach down and between songs you change things, but this is a spaceship. It's
something you can really dive into and learn. And
this is a studio bass, isn't it? This is some proper tone shaping on this. So go back to my original question: can we boost a little bit of that low end to kind of fatten our funk?
Okay, so lead me through this.
Well, so we're going to want to roll towards the lower end of the spectrum.
It's here.
Yeah. Maybe give that a little boost.
Yeah.
So we've got a bit now.
How's that? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some serious low end there.
Okay. Still in the back pickup. Okay. So maybe just bring that.
Maybe go back to our center position, and then we can see. Yeah. Now roll that back. Let's see if we can really get that some weight on that. Give it a bit of a flea. Yeah, that's really kind of.
So we're still in the back pickup,
isn't it? Yeah.
So what we've done here is in the back pickup, and we brought some low end in.
Brought some low end in. Yeah. And I'd say listening to it, there's a kind of thing you can do with EQ. You can cut and boost, obviously, but you can also do like a notch. So if you're boosting a portion, if you notch out either side of that portion, you're accentuating that. So you might only be boosting by say 5 dB, but you're also with these cuts, it's maybe more like 7 or 8.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of what our peak thing is doing, is it's not only lifting that peak, but also, if my ears aren't deceiving me, giving us little scoops either side as well. So it's really accentuating that. Cool. I mean, there we go. So that's actually given us loads of low end.
Yeah.
It's brought our funk control, our funk tone back into the kind of bass range again.
Sounds lovely.
Fantastic. Maybe if we just roll it to that back control again, put a bit more of that high on then. I mean, I think we'll probably get to some serious corn territory. Yeah, that's the one. So that's your treble. Yeah.
So I mean, it's worth it. I mean, before we go any further, our signal chain there's no amps or anything.
We're DI'd today because we really want to hear everything that the bass is doing without any kind of coloration from anywhere else. So
this is the sound of the bass.
This is the sound of the bass, and it's probably a touch more clinical than you would expect a bass sound, certainly on a record to be. You'd be going through an amp, through a cab, or at least the emulation or something. And if you weren't, you'd be shaping that tone, high and low shelves, just to kind of bring it into the mid-range again, back where everyone else is, because the frequencies you can get from a bass guitar DI'd are off the scale. They're beyond what you can hear.
Well, especially this one.
Absolutely.
I don't think I've ever played a bass. I mean, I've got nearly 20 basses at home. I don't think any of them have got the tonal capabilities.
No, it's full on, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is a 9-volt preamp as well, which is I find a bit strange. My one, which is the most extreme one I've got, is an 18 volt. So it's 2 batteries, and it eats them up. So I don't know how long this is going to last. But it's a beast of a preamp. I don't think I've ever heard anything quite like it. No. But there we are. Cool. Right. So what else can we do? So maybe a roll forward then to our.
All right.
Let's put that treble back down again.
I'm going to reset.
Yeah, reset, and then we'll roll forward to our. Do we want to hear the blend between the two? I think that's where we started, wasn't it?
Okay. Let's give us.
Oh, so that's rolling between the two, yeah. So when I said the blend, I meant that when we get it perfectly in the middle, there's normally a notch.
Yeah, got it.
So you're hearing both pickups. It's probably my favourite tone. I don't know why. It's got everything in it. And I think you get a kind of natural scooping as well when you've got both pickups. I think there's a bit of cancellation. Something happens there where you get this kind of very kind of studio-y sound. It suddenly sounds kind of processed. Sounds fantastic. Those highs are lovely. It's so clear. Yeah. I mean, I think this is where this kind of bass really excels, because of the size of those pickups, the spread of it, you're getting the whole tone of the whole kind of instrument there. If we now scroll forward into kind of P-bass territory, can you take us back to 1951? That blend?
Okay. A bit later than like 51.
Definitely a bit later, isn't it? That's so clear. There's nothing primitive about that, is there?
No. So how much, I mean, we're talking a lot about the controls here. How much of the sound do you think comes from the electronics and the preamp and everything, and how much comes from the wood and the construction of the bass?
That is a whole can of worms. Is
there even an answer to that?
There isn't an answer, no. If you ask different guitar makers, you know, how they would rank those things, you will get a different answer from each one. I guarantee it. So much of it, in my opinion, comes down to the electronics. And I mean, what's happening is, you know, we're talking about that space between the pickup and the string. So much is happening there. Yes, of course, the wood resonates, but it's a solid lump of wood. Yeah. So the actual sound you get from that resonance, in my opinion, is lower down the scale of what's important to the sound than the electronics and the pickups. Guitar makers will tell you otherwise. They'll tell you, and there'll be reasons why these particular woods have been chosen. And it's a never-ending topic. Yeah, and it's quite a difficult thing you can't pick it apart. You can't play the bass without the wood. You know, you can't take away. You can't get any sound without the pickups. You know, the whole thing comes together, and it's whether the sum is greater than the parts or not.
Which is why this sounds like nothing we've heard before. Because we spent a good 45 minutes just playing the bass before we even hit the record button, didn't we?
Yeah, just to get our heads around the controls and what we can do with it. And that wasn't enough. I'm feeling rushed right now. And also there's practical application when we're just playing a bass on its own. Or even when there's two of us playing, it's still just bass guitar. You're trying to put that into a mix. Yeah, it's a totally different thing. As soon as you've got a band and you're like, oh, that bass has disappeared a little bit. Can you do something with the tone? Well, what have you got on most basses? And this one, it's like, yes, I can. And you can sweep through it, and you can use somebody else's ears, and they can say, yeah, stop there. That's the bit that's cutting through. That's the frequency I want. Yeah. On either pickup as well. I mean, so we kind of looked at them independently, doing the thing there where we're adding bass to get the Stingray kind of sound, with adding bass to the back pickup. We can do things to the front pickup, although it's sounding pretty glorious as it is, to be honest. I'm not wanting anything there. But if you if you were to use the blend, so you're using both pickups simultaneously and you're using both of those filters simultaneously, right? You can now treat them as kind of tone controls for the sound of the whole thing. So you can be looking for more bass. You would probably want to look for that from the neck pickup, and you can add more bass than you would ever need on that one. And then if you want more funk, more twang, more brightness, you can do that as well at the same time. you don't have to worry about, I've only got one filterable control, one parametric EQ, basically. You've got both that you can use. And a high and a low. Knowing where to position those, the bit in the middle that is left is the mid. So you've covered all the bases with two parametric EQs, basically. So, okay. I mean, there's nothing that this bass can't do. It's through the roof.
So let's fiddle with these a bit more then. Explain to me in a bit more detail what these two controls here do.
So it's essentially it's like a parametric EQ, if you've ever used one of those. What most tone controls will do on a passive, it's basically just a filter. You're just filtering off a bunch of high frequencies. It's quite crude. It's literally just a variable resistor and a bit of extra. It's a volume control with a bit of extra to only affect a certain part of the sound. Okay. With this, when we're into the territory of powered preamps, anything with a battery in it, you're then able to cut and boost. So you're able to boost, you're able to add significant amounts with your EQ. And this one is a stacked filter. It's a peak filter. And let me get the terminology right because it's really important. And actually, where are we going? So each one, it's a low pass filter with peak control.
Right.
So we are filtering off to whatever point we want, cleaning up the sound. So we should be able to get to a very kind of dull, just bass, nothing else kind of sound. But because we have these peaks as well, you get this very pronounced shape that you're moving as you move through the frequency ranges. You're kind of moving this very pronounced peak through it, which is going to give you this infinitely varied tonal variations that you can get from this thing just by moving that shape.
Okay.
And obviously the degree to which you kind of, as we heard earlier, if you turn it right up, you get some seriously strange sounds out of it.
But it's not designed to be.
It's not designed to be offensive. No.
we're pushing it to its limit then,
Absolutely,
aren't we?
yeah. And it's great that it goes that far. As I think we said right at the beginning, this is the kind of preamp you want to know what it does theoretically, I think.
Yeah.
For me personally, before you start messing around with it. Because you sweep through it one time and go, that was fine. And then it's the combination of turning up the peak and sweeping through that's going to put you in a very strange place sonically very quickly if you don't know what you're doing with it.
I mean, just generally, I just think the thing looks just amazing.
So you handed it to me this morning in a case, and I was expecting you to possibly bring more than one guitar, and I was expecting that to be from the weight of it alone, a 4-string, nothing. I was like, oh yeah, where's the beast? I didn't realise I was already holding it. It actually does not weigh a ton, does it? No. It's very easy to handle.
No.
And the neck as well. I had a quick go on it, and I just think it's one of the flattest kind of necks that I've ever played. I think a really kind of deep C cup kind of neck is not really for me. And the action throughout was just completely consistent. Doesn't matter where you play on the fretboard. It's identical, isn't it?
Some 6 strings you play are really I can find to be quite unwieldy. So you really got your hand around that. You have to really get your hand around it to play it.
Yeah.
The string spacing can be quite far, and it feels like you're playing just a big plank of wood. But this doesn't have that feel about it at all. This feels.
It's just the bass, isn't it? It's just
it feels really easy to play across the whole range. It doesn't feel like you have to work to play it. It just fits.
Absolutely. I really feel like I could pick that bass up and just play it without. It's not like you have to learn. I think if I was to switch, mostly I play 4. Occasionally I play 5. I think if I was to switch, or in my head I was thinking if I was to switch to a 6-string bass, it would be like relearning the instrument. It's a whole new thing. But I don't get that with that guitar at all. It's just there. It's just playable.
No, exactly. I mean, and when you're making the switch to a 6-string, introduces you to things you can't do on the 5, the 4 or the 5, like these big nice chords and everything where it really sings. And that's what register. So if you're thinking about a bass like this as your first 6-string, this is a great one to go for because you'll have enough to think about just by switching to the extra string, let alone having to get your hand around the extra bit of wood basically as well. So this eases you into that genre. That style of playing really neatly, I think. Bye.